is going to be me reacting to this, and then me reading and talking about a couple of screenshots that I've had for like a few weeks now that I just haven't made a video about. Then here comes the screen timeout settings that I always forget to change when I screen record. I kind of just woke up somewhat, but yeah, I'm gonna try to be
hopefully there are enough beds to go.
More alert than I usually am, even when I'm not half asleep.
5, the city of San Francisco following up on its pledge to clear streets of homeless encampments. How officials are trying to bring a humane solution to the ever-widening crisis. Sometimes.
One thing that I'll say though, at least if you're doing the runaway and lay low till 18 thing, or really, if you're anybody, never go to big cities, ever. Always try to go to small towns, although this could be really risky depending on your ethnicity and where you are. So then there's that issue. But just never go to big cities. This one girl I know who had to escape her abuse situation a few years back. I think she left a little before I left my situation, but I can't even really remember. So she had to do the whole lay low till 18 thing. Now she's, I think, almost 20. She turned 19 a little while ago. I can't really remember, but that's kind of irrelevant. But anyway, it's support groups about like living outdoors and traveling. She talks about some of the experience she has just with being followed by people with all types of perversion spirits, basically traffickers, those types of people, and how she has to get out of those situations, and how at this point she doesn't even want to go to big cities anymore. And I get that people may want to travel, but it's like I kind of feel like people who are in denial and believe that everything is a conspiracy theory really shouldn't even be in this type of situation. I don't know if she's one of those types of people, but something's kind of making me feel like she probably is, being that she's going to the places that she's going to and expecting these things to not happen, or at least hoping they won't happen anyway. Because, like, I mean, you know, when you're in a situation and you really don't have a choice anyway, you do like kind of lie to yourself about what could happen, or at least you try to not think about it. I'll say that you'll try to not think about it. So yeah, she talks about it on there, but she doesn't talk about it on her TikTok because people are already really worried about her being the kid out here. Which, honestly, that goes into a lot of denial that people have, because a lot of people first become homeless, or whatever you want to call it, somewhere from age 7 to 16. And then they end up getting stuck, or they do end up eventually getting a place once they get to an age where they have rights. But then it's like a cycle of having a place and then being homeless again because of different things, really revolving around not having anybody to fall back on or to help you. Because, of course, like I said in another video, which this wasn't the main point of the video, but I did mention it somewhere in there, the real cause of homelessness that nobody wants to talk about, because it's not really any of the things that people say it is. I mean, the rent thing, there's that, and it's getting worse, but it's really not even that. The real cause is the breakdown in the family system, which has been an agenda that's been pushed over time, but now it's even worse because they're turning the men against the women, and they've been turned the dads against the kid and then the women against the kid with all the my body, my choice stuff. So the breakdown in the family system, that's the real cause before anything else, because then you don't have anybody to fall back on, and then 9 out of 10, a whole bunch of traumatic stuff happened. Well, not even 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Whether you got kidnapped into the CPS system or you stayed with relatives. And so then that means you're going to have trauma, and then there's going to be flashbacks that come up sometimes, especially once you get into like your mid to late 20s. Common repressed memories start coming up then. Sometimes it depends on like whether your body's in an environment where it feels more safe. So, I mean, I can only imagine what type of stuff might start coming up for me eventually in the next couple of years, or even maybe way before I'm in my 20s. So, Yeah, there's that.
Takes that opportunity, and then they take it, and that's where we are.
Oh, wait a minute, hold up. And also, it's just more dangerous trying to like sleep in cities because then you're trying to sleep outside of buildings and on sidewalks and stuff and set up tents in cities. And it's just really risky. I feel like, honestly, if you can be in the woods, then you should always do that. But of course, when you're in the woods, then that means you like have longer walks to get to places, or you really just can't get to some places anymore. So like places to get food or your job or the school you go to, that can definitely make that harder, depending on where the woods is located at least. But if you're in like these big cities, it could definitely be farther out, which is why I would advise to try to not stay in big cities anyway in the first place. And what was the other thing? I think that's pretty much it with that.
We are here for that small window.
I'm not sure, man. Let's try to stay out of jail.
Today's sweep coming less than a week after Governor Gavin Newsom urged cities to take action. Good evening. I'm Greg Lee.
And I'm Claudine Wong. New at 5 tonight, KTV's Christian Captain is live for us in San Francisco with the latest on what happened today and where things go from here. Christian?
Yeah, San Francisco's mayor has been saying there was going to be increased effort to eliminate the encampments around the city, and today crews began patrolling the streets of San Francisco, doing just that. The city of San Francisco has started a renewed push to clear tents on the city's streets. Jeffrey Fry says the latest effort from the city is a challenge for him.
Damn right about that. I'm like, I think it's BS too. Like, but I mean, I guess we're trying to make stuff safer for people or something like that. But I don't know. I think it's
because of course there's always been this mindset around poor people where people with more money or people who pretend they have more money but try to like ignore the fact that they're about to be broke and their bank account is about to be wiped eventually and they're gonna have to start from the bottom. But anyway, those people feel like poor people are just poor because they're mentally ill and then they don't want to go to areas where poor people live because they're all violent and dangerous and they eat people and all that bull crap, even though it was always rich people eating people. But anywho, yeah, so that's where this mindset really comes from. People can say the stuff that they want to say about the drugs and all that, but honestly, if people really cared about drugs, they would tell the chemical engineers who spend years and years in university, they tell them to stop making the drugs. They tell the doctors to stop making and handing out the drugs. They tell the police and the military to stop trafficking the drugs. And all of the other law officials or whatever you would call them that are trafficking the drugs. That's what people would do if they really cared about drugs. And also, really, like people have been saying, the drug crisis in the mostly white areas, that's kind of what a lot of people have been felt like it was a judgment type thing, like karma basically, for the whole thing where like the FBI and the doctors have put drugs in quote-unquote black communities and then started the war on drugs and then started throwing everybody in jail. But you'll see in the mostly white areas they haven't done that because drugs are legal in their areas and have been legal. And then they call it being a quote-unquote hippie. But yet, in the South, where really all the quote-unquote black people live, people are still getting 20 years and stuff for smoking blunts. And of course, I'm not in any type of drugs. I don't like any of them, prescription or not. They're all bad. They're all pharmacia to me. So, I don't care for any of it. But I just always point that out. They let this issue get bad in their areas. And I know people are going to say, well, this dude's black. Just because there's some black people in Cali doesn't mean that it's still not a mostly white area. Literally, majority of the quote-unquote black population lives in the South where drugs are still illegal. And yeah, so people are getting 20 years and stuff for weed, but yet in mostly white areas like Cali, people are just standing outside doing drugs all day. And then the organizations hand out drugs and needles, and they call it, quote-unquote, dang, what do they call it? Harm reduction. There we go, because I can't ever remember, and then actually say damage control, and that's totally something else. Which is funny, because I already have a video where, like, the usual bullcrap happened where somebody called the police on me over some bullcrap, and they said I was a kid holding up a sign about how I will wash cars and stuff for money, which honestly never really gets anywhere because of course nobody's gonna trust me enough to let me wash their car anyway. But I still try. And then I do house cleaning sometimes, not really so much anymore. Which that's kind of a funny story, but I'm not going to go into that. So somebody called the police because of that, of course. And luckily, since I'm 18 plus now, the police weren't able to throw me into the cash for kids system because I've had to find ways to get out of getting arrested so many times. Because of course, when you're under 18, you're not being trafficked and abused through the cash for kids system or being somebody else's cash cow and punching bag. You're considered a fugitive and a criminal. And it's even worse than being homeless 18 plus. Which, of course, 18, that's still a teen, but that's when you get more rights anyway. So, that whole thing happened, and they were literally trying to search me for drugs, and it's like, how are you going to try to search me for drugs? Which, of course, I wouldn't have any. I don't even do drugs. But it's like, how are you guys going to do that when they're legal here? So you're about to throw me in jail for drugs when you let everybody else just sit around doing drugs and you let the rich people just sell drugs all day. Like, I get arrested every 3 months for nothing, but I have to watch rich people get out of their cars with bags of drugs and sell them to people and traffic drugs and stuff. And of course, police are never going to do anything about real issues. They spend all their time harassing homeless people, but of course, they're never going to do anything about trafficking because, for one, the people that are doing the trafficking, a lot of them are above them, at least the ones at the top anyway. And not to mention the police also have their hands in trafficking. And I mean of people, not just drugs. So, of course, the real issues are never going to be handled. And the overall thing with this homeless encampment cleared and people saying yes, throw them all in jail and into mental asylums. The thing with that is that people are really brainwashed and stupid and ignorant. What all this is really for is for the breaking down of the Constitution. So that way, when the Constitution is completely done away with and is non-existent anymore, and none of us have rights anymore, then the government and all that can just be like, well, you guys voted this in and you agreed to it. Because, of course, when people feel like something doesn't affect them, they don't care. But when it affects everybody, then people are going to be jumping out their windows and hanging themselves and stuff, if I can even say that on here. So, yeah, that's the real goal with all this. Even when it comes to things that have nothing to do with homelessness, even with, making laws about what people can and can't say, and taking away the freedom of speech, people are willingly breaking down the Constitution, and then they're all going to play stupid, dumb victim when it's completely done away with.
I think it's still a hassle.
City crews say they try to engage with those living in tents, offering mental health care and or drug and alcohol counseling.
Because, of course, they want to make everything about mental health and drugs when it comes to poor people. And especially the homeless situation, because they want to throw everybody in asylums anyway. But what people don't know is that when these asylums are built, anybody who's not doing what the elites want them to do is going to be thrown into these asylums. They think it's going to be a homeless thing. That's just what it's being framed as right now. But when things really hit the fan and we get deeper and deeper into the beast system, this is going to be about everybody. Anybody who's not doing what the elites want them to do is going to be thrown into these prisons. In fact, when things really get deeper into the beast system, they're going to quote-unquote eradicate poverty anyway, so everybody's going to be thrown to these tech prison homes anyway. So there's not even going to be homeless people unless you're somebody living off the grid trying to hide from the systems in the woods or something, which means you're going to be on the move constantly. And that's going to be a totally different situation. So when things really hit the fan, there's not even going to be homeless people anyway, but yeah.
Give at least 2 days notice that a sweep is coming and offer to hold on to the belongings of the person in the tent. The city's homeless outreach teams offer shelter beds that are available immediately.
And of course, people under 18 can't even go to shelters unless, you're lucky enough to find a place like I did where you could at least come shower and just lie about your age, which of course people still don't believe I'm the age I say I am, but that's whatever though. But it's like, laws like this just make it way worse for people who are doing the lay low till 18 thing. You're already hiding and on the run. Even if there's not a missing persons report out for you, you're hiding it on the run because when you're under 18 and you're doing this, you're considered a quote-unquote fugitive because nobody's making money off of you, to make a long story short. So stuff like this just makes it even worse. It makes it even harder for you to hide. And what else? Even if you're in the cash for kids system and you're like in CPS, but you don't have a placement at that point in time, so you're one of the 13-year-olds ganged up living under bridges in New York or something. Laws like this make it even harder for you because then they're going to be throwing you in jail, even though you technically are in the systems that they want you to be in. Well, not technically, you are. You just don't have anywhere to be at that point in time.
We offer it, see him, we give him what the opportunity is right now. You know, there's this opportunity to be at this navigation center, at this shelter, or this hotel, that kind of thing, whatever's available in the day. And then like, okay, I'll take a navigation center, but all right, let's go.
Joel, who didn't want to reveal his last name, said he's been told he could be arrested if he didn't clear out. He said he just wants to be left alone and that he's not interested in a shelter bed.
You're going to take your stuff in there and just lose everything.
One thing I will say, though, is I don't know why people are acting like these laws have just now made it illegal to be homeless or just now made people, like, start getting arrested for being homeless. This has always happened. I mean, sure, it may be getting worse, but I don't know why some people are trying to pretend that this just started. It was never legal in the first place.
Everything and get kicked out. I don't know. That's happened to me. I prefer to be out here, but we'll see what happens.
Anybody that's trying to tell people to go to shelters and then they won't be homeless anymore, for one, doesn't even know how shelters usually operate. And, well, yeah, they don't know how shelters operate. I was lucky enough to to find a shelter, be near a shelter anyway, that for one had pallets. I mean, of course they don't have air conditioning or anything, but it's still your own space. And two, they don't have, like, curfews or anything. Also, the not checking ID thing was really good for me. But since they don't have a curfew, you're not like at the usual shelter where you having a job or having places to go and things to do. It's put on the line because you're not allowed to go anywhere. And if you do go, you can't come back. And then that kind of defeats the purpose of even being at the shelter unless you're just keeping your stuff there, which commonly in shelters, you can't really have that much stuff anywhere. Not only will it get stolen, but you literally can't have things at the usual shelters. Like, I remember when I was in Birmingham, Alabama, they couldn't even have phones in there. So, like, you couldn't even own a phone in the shelter. And you couldn't keep any of your stuff on you. You couldn't keep your clothes, none of that. Everything was locked away. That's the usual shelter. And also, I'm at a 6-month emergency shelter. They let me stay longer than I was supposed to, or at least they haven't said anything yet. I guess maybe that was because of the whole age thing, the fact that I had literally, like, just turned 18 when I came in here. Not to mention a lot of the staff still don't believe I'm 18, but I don't even know if I should mention that because I don't want people to get in trouble for being nice enough to care enough. Since, like, technically, if they think that I'm, like, under 18, they're not supposed to let me stay. But anyway. So, yeah, they let me stay longer. They do that with some people, depending on the situation. But, dang, what was I about to say? Oh, yeah, so this is a 6 month. Usually shelters are like, you sleep there and then you have to leave in the morning. Even really, really early in the morning. Like some crazy times, like 8 a.m. sometimes. So, overnight or 30 days. That's the common shelter. Not to mention, living at a shelter doesn't mean you're not homeless anymore. People think that. Like, I'll see people in the comment sections of videos saying if they really didn't want to be homeless anymore, they just go to a shelter. I don't know what people think shelters are. And also, shelters don't help people get housing either. There's also that misconception. So there's a misconception that shelters are housing. And there's a misconception that shelters help you get housing. Like, there was this one girl here that everybody, like, really felt like the shelter should help because they said her out of anybody, she could really get out of this situation because she wasn't, like, really messed up, whatever that even really means. And I honestly don't even like the idea that because somebody at least doesn't physically appear as broken and traumatized and messed up as somebody else, that means they deserve help more. That's honestly a really sick mentality. But anyway, people here, like the other residents, they really felt like she deserved help out of anybody, and like she had a job and all that. But of course the shelter doesn't help her because they don't help people get housing. There's also a housing shortage, but still they don't help people get housing. Like the most they could do is tell you to sign up for Section 8, which Section 8 is literally closed everywhere from Niagara Falls, New York, down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So, I mean, that's whatever. And you still have to, like, qualify for that. So, like, you could make what they would consider a good amount of money, but still not be able to afford housing. But anyway, of course they didn't help her. She just had to do woofing work all over again. So luckily, last minute she found some type of farm work on Craigslist where she could also live in another shed. Also, luckily, it at least has shade from certain angles. So yeah, she's doing that again, and she's one of the people that also, like, well, she didn't have to do the Layla till 18 thing, but she did first end up homeless at 17, and then she had places to stay, and she didn't consider herself homeless. But honestly, what a lot of people consider the situation she was in still being homeless, but she says whenever she has a roof over her head, she doesn't consider herself homeless. But I mean, some people would probably even still consider her current situation homeless, to be honest. But yeah, so she had to go back into woofing work. And what woofing is basically you're living somewhere, but literally every day, all the time that you're there, it's just working and shoveling horse crap and farming and stuff. So it's not even like, it's really no rest in it. And it sucks. But honestly, I mean, I feel like, well, let me not even say that. So yeah, there's that situation. And of course, them not having like family to fall back on, because obviously a whole bunch of bull crap happened. That just makes things way harder, and that's why they commonly sometimes fall into situations that they do, which they started falling into what they consider homelessness in 2020 during the whole, what can I say, the pandemonium thing. And so, yeah, some people fall in and out of homelessness due to, like, their situation with family and all that.
This latest push to clear encampments comes a month after the United States Supreme Court cleared the way, and less than a week after Governor Gavin Newsom ordered state agencies to step up their enforcement and asked cities to do the same. The mayor said San Francisco's plans have been in the works for weeks. She said San Francisco can be compassionate, offering help, while at the same time making homelessness so difficult that it pushes people to accept the help the city is offering.
We are doing everything we can.
But the thing is, that would be fine and dandy if there actually was help for Jack Diddley. Because like I always say, if you've ever been in a situation where you actually need help, and I'm not even talking about homelessness, I'm talking about anything, you'll find out real quick that there is no help. And if you are one of the lucky people who got help, or like maybe you had a friend's parents who adopted you, or CPS took you, which they're a trafficking organization anyway, and of course, another branch of the Cash for Kids system. But if you got in there, you were one of the lucky ones who got adopted into a good home, which usually even by then the damage has already been done. You may be one of these people who act like there's help when there really isn't, because you don't actually understand that you're like the lucky 1%. And yeah, so, or maybe you were like one of those people who were able to, I don't know, scare organizations into helping you and not gaslighting you and stuff, and scare them into doing their job. Which, even if that works, that's still rare, because commonly the people who really do try to do that, they get bashed and kicked out of places. And I don't mean scare like anything crazy. I don't mean like violent stuff. I mean like bringing up laws and like what the organization is supposed to do and what funding is supposed to go towards. And I even have videos about other programs where when people do stuff like that and they just say, well, you guys are supposed to do this, they get shut up. So, yeah.
We can to make it clear to people that our expectation is that you take us up on our offer for services. And if you don't, we want to make things less comfortable for you.
Advocates for the homeless say there are many
I don't like the eye roll thing she was doing, but anyway.
reasons why shelters don't work for some people, and that following sweeps, the most vulnerable are worse off than before.
But of course, because shelters can also be more dangerous, because the thing is, I was kind of talked into coming, especially since my tent had flooded. And it's like, the thing is, now more people know about me who previously didn't. And then people try to say, well, I mean, people did see you and mention you. But the thing is, nobody actually knew where I was at all the time. And they saw me very rarely. But it's like now, all the weird pedo chomo people who were like staying at the shelter, around the shelter, now they know about me and now they know where I'm at all the time. So that's one issue that I could think of when it comes to like quote unquote more vulnerable people becoming more vulnerable or whatever in the world they said. I can't even remember.
Giving a short notice and then coming in and removing an encampment doesn't change the basic problem of someone having nowhere to go and not having a...
Not to mention that a lot of people specifically like me, even because, even when I was lying about being 18, because of course you have to do that in these types of situations. Honestly, if possible, I would say tell people you're 21. But the thing is, a lot of people, quote unquote, like me or whatever, because of the fact that I look like I'm 12. And so that just makes things worse.
Having a place to live, not having a shelter.
The men we spoke with today said they planned on moving a few blocks away and then maybe moving back to that same location later on if they can. The city says it can maintain this level of sweep for now, and officials are hoping that as more people take the city up on the offer for shelter, there will be fewer encampments to sweep. We're live in San Francisco. Christian Cafton, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Now, Christian, hearing from those men who say they're just going to go to a different place and come back, it seems like this is...
And that's really common. I mentioned this in another video about the street that I live on and how like the police kept kicking everybody out and handing out eviction notices and arresting people, and then sending out the city crews to like spray down the sidewalk with soap water and bleach and all that. But the thing is, when they do that, people do eventually just come back. And sometimes after a couple of cleanouts, they'll wait a little longer and still come back, because like they don't really have anywhere else to go. Or like they can't go out into the woods like some people do. I mean, like I've been talking about, I personally became basically chronically ill by 14 because of different things in my situation. And then of course I ended up messing my back up when I was camping on that hill those few months back. And I don't even know what in the world, but I'm still doing what I can to work on that. So even before the back thing, just the health issues I already had going on makes it really hard to get around and do stuff. But I can only imagine being like 1 hour plus into some forest and then having to come out every day to get food and go to work and go to school and all that.
This is going to be kind of an ongoing effort between the city and, the people who are unhoused in the city. Do we have a time frame of when the mayor thinks that people, will see kind of an impact of what these sweeps are doing in terms of the landscape of the city?
So no time frame as of now. Like I said, I did reach out to the mayor. I did talk to the mayor and ask how long can you sustain this effort, and she said we can do this for now. And the hope is that enough people will take the city up on that offer of shelter. That means fewer encampments, and so that means that fewer resources have to be spent trying to remove those encampments. So the hope.
Oh, brother. So, I mean, they're admitting that they're using the funding money that's supposed to go towards helping and housing people to kick people out, which I already talked about this in the specific area I live in, where they claim that, so they said $4.5 million is going to be used to do something about homeless encampments in a park. And then they claim that they were going to use it to maybe possibly house 20 people. Which is insane for so many different reasons. But really the $4.5 million has been used to, of course, pay the police some more. to throw homeless people in jail, but also to pay people to like come clean up and move the homeless encampments and throw the tents and stuff in the trash and throw away people's birth certificates and social security cards for the people who even still had them left anyway. So yeah, I mean, at least they're admitting it, but of course people aren't going to read in between the lines because people aren't taught to do that anymore, because I don't really want to go into all that.
Hope is really on the part of the city that people do start taking the city up on the offer for shelter beds and then hopefully get moved into permanent housing at some point down the road.
Hopefully there are enough beds
At some point down the road.
to go around as well. Okay.
Okay, but you guys claim there were enough beds, though.
Thank you, Christian. We appreciate that live report.
Oh dang, this is way too long. I'm not gonna be able to edit in the screenshots. That's just gonna have to be like a separate video, but this is kind of funny, to be honest. So yeah, that's it. Didn't know this had been 30 minutes already. So yeah, I guess the screenshots will be a separate video eventually. And then that's that.